Hey everyone, I'm Carolyn from Tranquil Mentor, a registered nurse and creative wellness coach. Today I'm excited to share an illuminated Call of Duty inspired miniature MP40 made to display on a desk or shelf. I'll walk you through the materials we used and how this project came together. To get the outline for this design, I used a reference image from callofduty.fandom.com, and I will link that in the description below. And I used the left bottom image and I cropped it. Then I went into Affinity Designer 2 and I drew the outline of the image in that software. And then now here we are in Lightburn. I bought that image into Lightburn and it is quite a bit larger, so I did have to resize everything. And then I'm just going to show you that I did the offset here. Now I'm not going to use it, but I'm just showing you that I did 0.25 and the offset's already on it, but I'm just showing you that feature. Then I resized everything down to what I needed. This image inside, I did another offset. I'm going to cancel out of that because the offset's already done. And then I brought this text in. I did a image trace of it. It's from the game. So I brought that in and resized everything. It's very tiny. This image inside, I did a series of offsets to get that. And that's going to be our track that we're going to use. And that's where an opening will be for the lighting. Now these two holes that I put in, I had an original different idea, I guess, originally. And I didn't end up using it that way. I actually stood it up instead. I probably would have done this differently, and I'll tell you about that a little bit later. But for now, that's what is in there. So I'm in the laser cutter now. It's an Atezr P20. And I'm cutting the image out on a hardboard. And I get this from my local hardware store. I've cut a bunch of other things out of here, but I'm going to use this part. I also did use a couple other types of wood from Dollar Tree, and they maybe 1 millimeter, and you'll see that there. The two inner pieces are from the hardboard. And then I've got my black spray paint, and I'm going to go through and spray paint everything black. I probably don't need to spray the insides, but I'm going to do that. And then here's all the inside pieces that I'm going to use. I definitely should have even made 4 of those. I don't need that piece for now. I may be able to use it for later, but that's going to fit on the inside like that. But definitely deeper would have been better. I had so much lights left over. It was too crazy. It was 3 feet of lights, and it was just way too many. I needed definitely to double up that inner piece. And the back of this hardboard that I use is waffled in a way. And at first I really didn't like using this because of that. And then I got to the point where I really like it now because I feel like the glue can sit in it and it holds very well. And then I'm using my trusty Gorilla Glue and just my toothpick to get that in there. And then I have time to line it up with that particular glue. So I'm just taking my toothpick, and sometimes even when it dries, it's a little bit easier to go get that out. You shouldn't really use your thumbnail, but you can. And now we're cutting out the Mylar piece that's going to go in between that the light will shine through. This is my Cricut maker. I get this Mylar, it's cutting boards from Dollar Tree. I just took the largest outline and I'm cutting that out with my knife blade on the maker. And the knife blade is pretty specific to the Maker 3, and it may be to Maker 4 now too. I don't have one yet, so I know that the knife blade is pretty much a Maker thing. So you can see how it goes up and down and cuts, and then there's my Gorilla Glue that I use all the time. I'm going to glue this Mylar piece on, and then here's the coin battery lights that I used. I got them from Amazon. They're the white LED lights, And then there's our little coin package, and I'm just testing them before we go through putting them all in. And they're usually in a figure 8, and you just open them up. And then somehow I'm going to fit them in this tiny little space. So I'm going to use that one hole to bring all these through. And now what would have been better is the fatter part of the gun. That would have been really good to go in that way. And then I could have put all of the lights in and all the wires in that tray, in that little pocket. So you see I'm limited here, and I'm just working it out, and that's how we learn, we do things. And now I have my bandage tape that I use, which I really think works very well. You can hot glue it in after you get it all bent together. You can do a couple little pieces of hot glue in there, but I just use that tape and I don't have any problems with it. Now you could see I have definitely put this together with some clamps. The clamps are from Dollar Tree and some of them are from a hardware store. And every one that I had I used because this was a little tricky. And when you're doing this, you have to make sure that you don't pinch any of the wires in because they're really delicate and they will split and cut. So you have to push that piece in. And now I'm testing it again just to make sure I didn't cut anything off or pinch anything. It looks like everything is so far so good. And we've got our little Mylar piece glued down. And I let that glue overnight or dry overnight. I'm sure probably 3 or 4 hours would have done it. But I let that dry. And I'm just lighting it up again just to make sure everything is okay. It does look good. I really like the way it's turned out so far. And then I'm going to take my actual glue itself and I'll glue the big pieces on first, the big blobs first. And then I'll go back in and take my trusty toothpick. Let's just put a paper towel under there. And I'm going to take my toothpick and just go through those tiny little parts there. Now some people use the masking tape on the back and it makes their part adhesive, and I don't have that, so I just usually use my Gorilla Glue. And then I have time with the Gorilla Glue to match this up and get some of the glue blobs out. And then I'm going to go back into my clamping system again, my good old Dollar Tree clamping system, and I'm going to make sure everything is lined up and glued down. It does help to spend quite a few hours with this gluing down. And then I took the time and I put that piece in the middle. Everything wasn't totally dried, but I just felt that I could do this part at the same time. So I glued that down, and then I'm going to take my clamps here and just make sure that there's an extra area or that I'm just going to press onto that area in there and hold that down. And I'll let that dry for a while. It definitely does better when you put a few hours into drying time. And with this, I just let it dry overnight. And then I've got my Oracle 651 vinyl. I get this from Michaels, and you can also buy it online. And the supervisor at Michaels told me that if it just says white on the back, then it's glossy. If it says white matte, then it's matte. So this is what I have for now. I ended up with glossy because there wasn't any matte. So I had this on hand, and it's going to work out just fine. I typically like the matte better, but it was okay. And then I'm getting this ready for my Cricut, and I'm just going to cut this vinyl out. And I'm getting this pushed down very well because these letters are going to come up. So it's not going to be easy. And I do have a standard grip mat because it's vinyl. I may have done a strong grip, but I didn't. I did the standard, so we'll see how it goes. And I'm just getting it lined up in the Cricut, and this is a regular blade that's in here, the fine point blade to cut vinyl. And then we're going to get this started. We're going to push our play button, and it's going to get itself lined up, and it will cut this out for us. Very, very tiny little letters. And if there is any other way that you want to do this, I would totally understand. I don't know if a stencil would help out or not, but I think if you have really good writing, you could take a paint pen, a white paint pen, and write it on there. That may be another way to do it. Or you could trace it on top. You print it out, take a piece of paper and trace it first, and then go over it with your white pen. What I did was I made 3 instances of the same thing here. I'm going to use the best one because oftentimes some letters come up on some letters don't come up on others. So I burnished everything down the best that I could, and I ended up with a piece here that you could see in the middle from the button over. And then you can see on the top that the hold came out good. So I'm going to use that. And then this is my transfer tape that I get online. I will link that below if it's still a usable link. I'll link it below. I use this because I can see and it works very well. Now on my mat, it's a little bit tough, so sometimes I'll put it on my desk, the glass part of my desk, and I'll burnish it down. And what I'm doing is I'm getting this image onto the transfer tape so I could transfer it just the way that it is, all intact on this part. And then I'll leave enough room. I'm going to burnish this down again, and I really took my time burnishing it down, and then I took my time pulling it off. I pull it off at about a 45-degree angle, and I do have the camera sped up, but I really took my time. This was a very tedious part of the job, but it did turn out well, and that made me feel great. So the little hold right here is all intact, so I'm just going to go and use that. And there's no sense in trying to pull everything together. Just use what you have. And then here's how that turned out. I just love that. I think that really looks just like it does in the game. And we're going to press this down, and I burnish it down too. Then I've got some tumbling tower blocks. They come from Dollar Tree. Since I didn't get this pocket very deep, I am going to need these tumbling tower blocks to work as a base. And I'm just hot gluing them together. And then I didn't paint them yet because I wanted them to glue down. And then I'm just lining it up, getting the center the best I can. And I'm going to take my hot glue gun, and I'm just going to glue that onto a base so that it stands up. And then just hold it in place. And then back here is part where that Dollar Tree wood separated a little bit. But I'm taking some sandpaper, and this is spackle that I had. I put spackle in it. It's 150. And then these little extra pieces, because I used my bandage tape again to tape over the back of this wiring, which would definitely next time I'm going to make sure that's enclosed. And then I've got my black Craft Smart paint from Michaels, and I'm just going to paint that up. And then I'll get the base done. I do the bottom at the very last so I could stand it up. I'm going to get a nice coat of paint on that, paint it front and back and the sides, just not the bottom yet. And then we'll go through and just get that done. And this wood paints up very nice, so I'll get that finished. And then just taking my time going in the little grooves. And I think that looks really good. And then we'll just finish that piece up a little bit. I'll get the edge. It looks good, and I have a little crevice to get into. Then I decided to go and paint the back, kind of blend it in a little bit. And you can see where I put the bandage tape on, and it does hold really well. I got one little light sticking out, which I wish I would have pushed in more. And then I'm just getting into the grooves. I thought I'd paint the little battery pack more. I need to leave the battery pack out so that you can change the batteries, because the batteries in these do go pretty quickly. So I would have to have some on hand. And then the easiest thing to do would be to open up the back instead of replacing them. And here we have it. This is on my son's shelf on his desk. I just love the way that this turned out, especially next to the Juggernog machine. And the way that it's illuminated is just gorgeous. I just love it. So excited. It's pushed him back into the corner, and it just lights everything up. And then you have your hold to buy MP40, cost $1,000. And And then the lights, that's a closer up view of how those LED lights really worked. Just a little set of coin battery lights. That's all that is in there. Now, I've seen other people use these filament lights. You could make a tray and put the filament in there and light that up. That would be another way to do it. There's so many different ways that you can do this project. For more creative wellness and Call of Duty inspired builds, make sure you like and subscribe. Every view, share, and bit of hype helps us grow this community and create more projects like this MP40. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.